This again will be numerous short videos that I hope will be helpful and more of a quick snapshot of the material in the chapter. This might seem to be kind of a ridiculous question, and I know I debated on including this slide, but I think that the main thing is that our athletes are not necessarily going to have the right information, and it's our responsibility as a coach, a parent, an athletic director. It's important to have information that is scientifically based and nutritionally sound. Although you will not most likely have the credentials of a registered dietitian, you will serve as a resource for your athletes. Now, this is a 2001 study of nutritional knowledge, and it indicated that there were a lot of gaps. So this is, again, 20 years old, but we have few individuals that really had a handle on protein. Most individuals thought that drinking sports drinks were best. The misunderstanding that vitamins and minerals give energy or are sources of energy. So we have really a lot of misconception in this time. So I thought it would be worthwhile to look for an article that was more up to date. This is an assessment that was done relatively recent, and I'll have the year on the next slide. I don't want to state what it is and be wrong, but this is looking at what athletes know in regarding to their understanding of dietary practices, appropriate nutrition, and what they thought of the knowledge of their coaches, their athletic trainer, the physician, and their nutritionist. We have the descriptive characteristics of the participants in this slide. You'll see that there were actually more females than males, but this is Division III collegiate athletes. And here we have an assessment of the sport nutrition based upon the total questions, there were 49 questions, and this has the total sample determined the difference, the total score, the differences by sex, the difference on whether or not an athlete had a nutrition course in college, and what kind of sport that they participated in. So the first line gives you the range of scores. Now the scores, if the individual said they didn't know, it was scored as 0. If they were correct on the question, they were given a point. If it was an incorrect answer, it was a -1. So the score range was between, if they got every single question wrong, it would be -49. If they got every question correct, it would be 49. The range in all of the 331 athletes, the range was a score as low as 38, -38, and a perfect score. And then we see our mean of 6.4, and there is really no difference between the knowledge of males versus females. And the individuals, there was no difference if a student had a nutrition course, and you'll see that only 62 of the total sample had a nutrition course. And there was really no difference if it was an individual sport or a team sport. Now, what do they know in terms of the macronutrients? And we'll see that there were 11 questions on carbs, 9, and this is the first column. The number of questions for each macro or micronutrient, what the score was with minimum, the range, and you'll see that there was a lot of misconception on all of these questions. So with a high score, a low score being 11, the high score being, low score -11 and the high score of 11, that overall the students got about a 3. So not a lot of information understood about carbohydrates, really poor knowledge about protein. If we just look at the total sample, not a lot of understanding about hydration and still very low understanding about micronutrients. And if we look over to the right, the females had a little bit better understanding than the males in hydration. So that's what that letter A means. And there was the individuals that did not have a nutrition course did not have as good of knowledge about carbohydrate and protein. So we've got some challenges there. As far as weight management, which is the last one, the student scores were also pretty poor. So we look at a low score could be -8, a high score could be 8. The range of those 8 questions was -6 to 8. So here we see there's really not a lot of good information understood about weight management questions. And finally, the individuals, I just wanted to point out again that not having a nutrition course was really only a deficit for carbohydrate and protein knowledge. But still, their knowledge was pretty poor. And there didn't look like there was any difference between athletes who were on a team sport or an individual sport. Where do athletes get their nutritional information? Well, they get them from a variety of places. And a lot of times it's peers and also online resources of that are not always sound. And so they get nutritional information from a lot of, it worked for me, so it'll work for you. It's anecdotal information. Again, you have a responsibility, if you're working with athletes, to be accurate, scientifically based information, but to always stray from giving medical advice, because if you get out of your lane, outside of the standard recommendations, you could be in professional jeopardy. I wanted to include this. This is from that same study, and that study was in 2021, which means that the data was collected probably in 2019. This, what did the athletes, whether based upon sex, what do they rate the coaches? Well, most of the coaches are viewed as very knowledgeable or moderately knowledgeable. So that's where that 31 and 36%, males and females, really no difference between the two. Their athletic trainers, very knowledgeable, not, but still there were more individuals that saw them as extremely knowledgeable. And if we finally look at how would you rate your information of the nutritionists, it's really interesting that we have some moderately knowledgeable recommendations, but for the most part, the faith in the nutritionists and the dietitians were held in high regard.